Listen to the Streets Talk Show with your host, Loretta La-Rue Duncan Fowler. It's all about uplifting and encouraging you through real stories from real people. Every week, we chat with folks making a difference in their communities and for God's kingdom. Get ready to be inspired, learn something new, and discover the great plans God has for you. Join us for an amazing episode of the Streets Talk Show with your host, Loretta La-Rue Duncan Fowler.
Welcome to the Streets. My name is Loretta La-Rue Duncan Fowler, and here at the Streets, we take the gospel of Jesus Christ over the digital highways and streaming byways. Here we talk to the most innovative and thought-provoking people about what's going on in their lives so we can help you with what's going on in your life. So come with me, Miss La-Rue, as we take it to the streets on the Daily Gospel Network. And today, my special guest is Lisa Hooks. She's going to talk to us about faith in action, advocating for mental health and IDD support through a Christian lens. Lisa is a systems change advocate with over 30 years of experience in maternal and mental health, community advocacy, supporting individuals in dual diagnosis of intellectual and developmental disabilities and mental health needs. Lisa works in intervention, crisis management, case coordination, restorative justice, child care centers, group homes, public health clinics, and justice-involved youth. She's also the mother of 4 and a grandmother of 3, including 2 grandchildren who have autism. Lisa is passionate about fostering systematic change in transportation, housing, childcare, mental health, and inclusivity. So welcome, my friend and my special guest, Miss Lisa Hooks, after this commercial break.
Check out Loretta La-Rue Duncan Fowler's book, For the Believers, a guidebook to manifesting abundance, increasing your financial net worth, restoring the paper cuts in your soul, and transforming your life. It's all about healing from past hurts with God's help and finding a meaningful life. This essential guide offers tips for a complete life change, covering everything from money to inner peace. Grab your copy on Amazon and start your journey to a fuller life.
Hi, Lisa. Welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you here on the Streets Talk Show. Been a minute trying to get you here, but you know, all things work together for the good for those who love God and are called according to his purpose. So why don't you come on and just tell the people a little bit about, well, I just told them a little bit about what you do. And our first topic that we're going to discuss, well, actually our topic that we are discussing is Christ-centered support for dual diagnosis and IDD and mental health. And my first question is, how can faith communities create more inclusive environments for individuals with IDD, which is intellectual developmental disabilities and mental health conditions?
Well, first, I want to start out by saying thank you, Ms. La-Rue, for inviting me to have this opportunity to talk about those who have dual diagnosed mental health and intellectual and developmental disabilities, and also coming from the perspective of the faith-based community. So I want to say I'm really grateful to have this opportunity to talk about that, especially when I come from the perspective of identifying as a woman of color, because historically us as people of color has had a difficult time in understanding the difference between mental health and intellectual and developmental disabilities. We relied heavily on our faith to guide us in this. And through that experience, a lot of times, without understanding there is a difference between mental health and what we call IDD, intellectual developmental disabilities, that need different types of approaches in order to deal with that. So this opportunity to talk to you today is so appreciated. What we can talk about in inclusion, when we talk about a person that may be dual diagnosed, or even an individual that may have one or the other, there really is a different type of approach, because a lot of times when we think of mental health does not necessarily impact a person's intellectual capacity. Mental health can also be treated. Intellectual and developmental disability does impact a person's intellectual capacity. That's the thinking and processing capacity, and cannot be treated. It can be supported. So we have to understand our approaches to those are different. I remember coming up as a child when we ran across a person with mental health. We talked a lot about in the faith-based community praying for that.
Mhm.
Sometimes even going so far as to thinking it was some type of witchcraft or demonic spirits. And
Yeah.
we relied heavily on coming together as a group or the congregation and saying, we're going to pray this out. That does not stand true for those with IDD. It is not a demonic spirit. It is nothing but simply the ability to intellectually process something. So that's one of the things that I want to highlight today is that there really truly needs to be an understanding. So with that, how do we be inclusive? We need
Mhm.
to gain knowledge and understanding of the two principles, mental health and IDD.
Yeah.
And so starting with that, promote awareness and understanding. But I think
Mhm.
that Ms. La-Rue, when we talk about promoting awareness and understanding, I think that's pretty centralized to our tenant just as a community.
Mhm.
We are afraid of things we don't understand. So how do we get a better understanding? We need to be able to promote awareness of things and topics and talk about it, which is why your show is so important.
Oh, so well, thank you very much, darling. I totally understand what you're saying. I have a child that he's grown now, 44, who's intellectually developmentally delayed, autism, and has autism. And I remember coming up, in church. Uh, I had ministers who said, "Well, you and your husband must have sinned or done something wrong." I had family members who felt like I should institutionalize him. You don't, you're not going to be able to take care of him, and you're just going to have to put him away. And thank God, my bishop at the time, God rest his soul, he was really instrumental in just letting the church know we're just gonna pray for the baby, and then we'll just pray, and we'll just keep praying until God moves on his behalf. But what I had to let them know, I appreciate your prayers, but this isn't God created him the way he is, not this is his will for his life, and he wouldn't give him to me like he is if unless he didn't think that I could take care of him. And
Mhm.
that was the realization that I came to in my own journey with taking care of a young man that has IDD. And so I totally get what you're saying. The support systems that we need to create in the church, it's different now in 2025. There are support systems in churches. Well, some churches, I don't know about all churches, but this is what we're trying to do, shine a light that you're not alone out there in the church world or in the community at large, and as Black women or even as women, period, that there are resources. And that's why I wanted you to come on the show so you can point us in that direction and point the people in that direction. So,
Exactly. So
so
this is
then,
a like mind opportunity that we have here. So thank you.
oh, you're welcome. Yes, like minded, great minds think alike. So then, my next question is what practical steps can the congregation take to provide spiritual and emotional support to families of individuals with dual diagnosis? Now, let me just put a little bit on that. We have ADA laws now. Like in 1996, I think they came in. And so, you had to have handicap spots and this, that, and the third. But when you're and then in some churches, the bigger churches, they have a place for handicapped people to. Handicap isn't even the right word. I'm sorry, my bad. I'm just old school. I'm showing my age now. I'm showing my age, y'all. Please forgive me. Nobody get offended. But we have a place for people to sit who are disabled. But then what kind of programs that the church can probably put together that would make their experience, their worship experience even better? Because autism, some people can't take the noise or all the crowds. How can we support that?
That's a good question. So some of the things that I've seen, we call universal design. It should really be designed to anticipate that diverse groups of people will be coming into a place of worship. Really, that's what we're designed for. We say, come all. So when we're talking about come all, do we make the place welcoming for all? And
Hmm.
who is all? So we need to
You
begin to
better
think
preach.
about who would all be. And in this case, we're talking about people with mental health disabilities, with intellectual disabilities, and physical. So
Mhm.
one of those things is tap into your congregation to see who has experience dealing with the different types of folks who have disabilities and what do they recommend in order to make the house welcoming to all. So that
Mm.
means you must have a seat at the table for diversity and inclusion. That
Yes,
should
ma'am.
not only be people representing folks with disabilities, but the people with the disabilities themselves. A lot of
Mhm.
times we want to speak for someone else when we should be allowing people to tell their own story. So I
Mm.
would start with saying, have a table that's welcoming and be open to diverse opinions. So that's to leadership.
Mhm.
Leadership, get that table together, put
Mhm.
your work group together, and understand what type of folks will be coming in. And so when
Mhm.
we do that, we need to make sure that we have resources and tools that we can then tell others about the type of people to expect as guests in your house. How do you
Mhm.
treat people when they come into the place of worship, which is your home? I mean,
Mhm.
it's kind of that familiar thing that we know just as a group of people. Again, I'm using those things to say, this is our house. How do we treat guests when they come to our house?
Mm. Amen.
So it
Amen.
starts with that premise of saying it's not really hard. You
Mhm.
treat people who come to your home with love and kindness. And it
Well,
also goes with the Spirit of God. What are we supposed to be doing? Showing grace, mercy, love, and kindness to all.
yes, yes, absolutely. That is exactly what we're supposed to be doing. It kind of remind me of when Ray's thing is television, and he loves to watch all the '90s programs, and we got to the point where wherever we went, no matter whose house we went in, they would hand him the remote, which I would say you don't have to do that. He got to learn. This not his television set. But
Right.
they didn't mind. You see what I'm saying? It was their way of showing love. No, give him the remote, put him over in their chair, and he would be fine right there. And so when you walk into your place of worship, as you were saying, you have greeters who greet the
Yes.
people as you come in. You could start with your greeters. When you see somebody that has a disability, whether it's physical, mental, or whatever it is, sometimes you can't even see the disability. But if the parent or whoever's with that person can say, okay, this child has a disability, or this man or woman has that, and as they walk in, then they can guide them. Just giving pastors and ministers and lead ministers what to do as they come into the church service, and say, okay, we have this set up for them, just like you have children's church for the
Yes.
kids,
Yes.
and not to exclude them from main worship, because if they can do main worship, let them do main worship. But if they can't do main worship, then you can set up something special for them that they'll still enjoy and still get the full praise on, So,
Exactly. And
yeah.
basically, you're talking about that village approach. That's where we need to say there needs to be a network of supports or allies, as we say. Who
Mm-hmm.
will I know? Because also the truth of the matter is people are not necessarily comfortable also identifying as a person with a disability, or saying that their family or child has a disability. And let me tell you, that's particularly so when we begin to talk about our brown and black boys. It is
Mm-hmm.
very hard for us to see our black boys as individuals with a disability. We are more quickly or likelier to believe that they're just bad. I hate to say that, but we are really quick to believe they're active, they're
Mm-hmm.
bad. They just
Mm-hmm.
need a little firm hand instead of
Mm-hmm.
understanding or recognizing that that might be a child with a disability who's never received the supports or services in order to help them live their life as though they're a person with a disability. So,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things when you talk about the greeters, that is really a thing that we could do is even if you have a greeter that just may have a badge or something that says, if you need assistance, including folks with disabilities, here I am.
Amen.
And then
Yeah.
allowing people to be comfortable to come to you and say, hey, my child is, and you
Mm-hmm.
gave an example about the remote to the television, because a lot of our churches, larger ones, do have the screens inside of the church. Miss
Mm-hmm.
LaRue, can you imagine if your son came into the church and started walking towards that screen before anyone knew who he was? How quick
Mm.
we are quick to defend that pulpit. How many
Right.
people would have gotten up to try to stop him or impede him from
Lord, have
reaching the front to that screen? And him
Right.
having an intellectual disability, not able to process what's happening so quickly, anxiety or everything else, someone or sensory needs, if someone touches him, what it
Mhm.
would have set off or triggered in
Mm.
him, because we really didn't know.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
how do we get to begin to know and understand what that's about? How do we have people who are protecting our customs, our religious freedoms and things, but also understanding the folks who may be there? Could it be
Mhm.
someone with a mental health that you have to maybe are triggered by PTSD, or could it be someone with an intellectual disability that just really didn't know that walking up to that front to that screen? But what is the harm of walking up to the front to the screen and not touching it, but standing up there and stimming or rocking or soothing themselves? It's not infringing upon any rights of anyone else around to worship, especially if we're in the spirit.
Right.
We're not
Okay.
even seeing that at all.
At
So
all.
when I come from that, I come from so many different things and say, I'm fine with that.
Mhm.
Um, but are we really fine with that in church? And how do we make that a part of our faith-based practice for those who we may not necessarily know what's going on, but it's okay. That's okay. So I think, again, going back to that, like you say, awareness, training, greeters,
Mhm.
making sure that people who walk in, whether you're a guest or anyone else, could clearly identify someone who could help you before you get into the main sanctuary or anything like that. Give you
Amen.
options and choices. Is
Mhm.
there a side room? Is there a side that you can receive more help from the ushers who are inside of the sanctuary? Sit
Yes.
more to this side, sit more to here, or do that to where you are included. Like, what are some of our options? But I don't think we've even talked about that enough. Some churches do, as you mentioned, but there are
Right.
some, especially our smaller ones, we just
Smaller
don't
church.
think, yeah, that
Mhm.
we have the capacity, because sometimes we think it takes a lot, but it really doesn't. Just awareness is starting a starting place.
Yes, that's right. And it's our way of showing love. You
Yes,
know, it's our
yes,
way of showing Christ in the earth as
yes,
you love on somebody or family that comes into the service that has a child or an adult, whoever family member, I should say, with a
yes,
disability. You show love as soon as they walk in the door, and that would break that ice where they don't
yes,
feel uncomfortable.
yes.
So we're going to go to our commercial break real quick, and then we'll come back with our my last questions and our final thoughts. And just hold on, we'll be right back.
Check out Loretta La-Rue Duncan Fowler's book, For the Believers, a guidebook to manifesting abundance, increasing your financial net worth, restoring the paper cuts in your soul, and transforming your life. It's all about healing from past hurts with God's help and finding a meaningful life. This essential guide offers tips for a complete life change, covering everything from money to inner peace. Grab your copy on Amazon and start your journey to a fuller life.
Looking for inspiration, motivation, and the good news of Jesus Christ? Look no further. The Daily Gospel Network has what you need. With more than 300 ministries from all over the country broadcasting every week, you're sure to get your dose of spirit-filled encouragement from the great programs on the Daily Gospel Network. Catch the Daily Gospel Network on Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, all mobile devices, and the internet.
And welcome back to the Streets Talk Show. We're talking to our special guest, Lisa Hooks, and we're talking about faith in action, advocating for mental health and IDD support through a Christian lens. And Lisa is our systems change advocate with over 30 years of experience. So she can really speak to the church and speak to us as individuals and believers about how we walk this walk with our families who have children with intellectual developmental disabilities or mental health issues, which are two separate things, by the way, just to make that perfectly clear. So, Lisa, our the next question I have is, how do you see God's hand at work in the lives of those living with IDD and mental health challenges? And I want to point to Psalms 139:14, which says, I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. So that's a mindset that I live with and I embody, but a lot of people don't. They think they that there's something wrong with them, or they did something, or God doesn't love them, he's punishing them, that kind of thing. So how do you see God's hand at work in the lives of those living with IDD and mental health issues?
Whew, that just brought chills to me because wonderfully made, I'm made in the image of God. And
Hallelujah.
so for that alone, I am worthy. For
Yes,
that
Lord.
alone, we are worthy.
Amen.
So when we talk about, and this is where my spiritual side takes over, you all. Who
Hmm.
that discernment comes on heavy.
Cry.
Too
Hmm.
many times we are forgetting that we are wonderfully made in the image of Christ, in the image of God. And so, who am I to tell anyone that they are not worthy? So,
Hmm.
we really need to highlight and hone in when we're teaching, when we're bringing the gospel, that
Yes.
we are wonderfully made in his image. And for that reason alone, we should extend grace and mercy to all. That our
Hallelujah.
lessons and our teaching should be inclusive of, and I'm glad you brought that up, 2 Corinthians 12:9. My grace is sufficient for you, for my
Hmm.
power is made perfect in weakness.
Yes.
I
Yes.
am wonderfully made regardless to my weakness. He said his grace is sufficient. And so I'm just not understanding how we say we are part of any faith-based community, and then yet we don't accept each other for who we are, being perfectly made in his image.
Hmm.
Um, those man, those lessons, those everything we need to really begin to incorporate how we can be inclusive of all every day, how we can support people with, that message, that preaching and that teaching. Who are we to say? We are talking about people. These are some difficult times that we are living in. And everything we do, we always just have here negative, negative, negative.
Hmm.
But if that negative, even if we hear that and he said that's a weakness in which I extend grace to you, extend that grace, extend that support, extend that love, show light, um, give back to people, feed into people positivity. So that's what I'd like to see. I like to be able to see when we talk about the sanctuary that it is a house of refuge, and the sanctuary is a safe place.
Hmm.
How do we draw people to that? So I'm not on this high horse, but I'm telling you all, when I've needed to feel welcome, that is one of the places that I go to, is a place
Amen.
of worship. And
Yes.
so folks are coming in and they don't know what to do with their children or family members who have mental health issues that are taxing and trying, and they're trying to reach out to this system, the system that I work for, and failing to get the proper supports. And
Hmm.
then they come into the church and someone tells them it's something you did that has
Hmm.
caused your small child. So you're struggling with guilt. You're
Hmm.
struggling with, how does your faith support you? How does your family support you? Where do you go with a system that's supporting you? And you're losing hope.
My
And
God.
our faith is the place in which, hope is where we should be drawing from. So there's this correlation between all of those things. And even if we're not a person of strong faith, and let me tell you, that happens, we need to be able to have people who can intercede on our behalf. Miss La-Rue, this is why you have a show. Is you're
Hmm.
talking about somewhere, somehow somebody can intercede on your behalf. If you just have a little bit of faith and you
It's the Lord.
say, hey, it's me, somebody should be there to be able to say, I understand. Let me tell you what I've been through. Let me be a living testimony to you. So when I think about God's work at hand, it is he gives gifts to man so
Hmm.
we can trust and believe in their gift that they've gotten. I believe that, as he said, we are wonderfully made. Even in
Hmm.
our weakness, there is strength. Okay.
Yes.
I
Yes.
believe that there are folks who are around to be living testimonies. You are a living testimony to what you experienced with your son. I'm a living testimony as a grandmother who's going through with my two boys, who grandsons who have autism. All of these things put together really can provide strength and hope for our community, but
Amen.
we don't know where to go. We are feeling lost. So
Hmm.
just in our everyday life, we need to be living testimonies for folks.
Hmm.
We need to be accessible. We need to have light so that when we see people, we can just say hi. We
Yeah.
can just say, how are you doing? That's God's work in hand. It's just drawing
Amen.
all to that light that's in us. If we say we are believers, where is our light?
Right.
Others should be coming to us to be able to do what we've been called to do, to minister, to guide, to lead, to all of those things. That's really what I believe.
Amen. Amen. Well said, sis. Well said. Praise the Lord. About to have church over here.
We know that. We always got church with us.
About to go have church. Y'all, you know, I just thank God for you. That was just beautiful answer to the question. You guys, y'all get that. Let that be deep in your spirit. Read all between the lines. Okay. So I want to thank you, Miss Lisa Hooks, for coming. I want to thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, your wisdom, your grace on the Streets Talk Show today. And we're just going to go and we're going to go to commercial one more time, and then we'll be right back.
Looking for inspiration, motivation, and the good news of Jesus Christ? Look no further. The Daily Gospel Network has what you need. With more than 300 ministries from all over the country broadcasting every week, you're sure to get your dose of spirit-filled encouragement from the great programs on the Daily Gospel Network. Catch the Daily Gospel Network on Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, all mobile devices, and the internet.
Check out Loretta La-Rue Duncan Fowler's book, For the Believers, a guidebook to manifesting abundance, increasing your financial net worth, restoring the paper cuts in your soul, and transforming your life. It's all about healing from past hurts with God's help and finding a meaningful life. This essential guide offers tips for a complete life change, covering everything from money to inner peace. Grab your copy on Amazon and start your journey to a fuller life.
All right, and welcome back to the streets. We've had our guest here, Lisa Hooks. And Lisa, darling, do you have any closing remarks that you'd like to say before we end our show today?
Well, I just, again, like to thank you for this opportunity. I also want to extend a hand out to say if anyone is in need of supports or services, if anyone is in need of just a little bit of help in understanding, whether it's for you, a family, or a friend, that I am always available. You can reach out to me. You can reach me at the State Council on Developmental Disabilities. My email address would be lisa.hooks, HOOKS, @scdd.ca.gov. Feel free to send me an email. Let me know if you need to reach out to me, ask me questions. If you need any information, resource tools, we can get that to you. But you also know that you can go through Miss La-Rue. Her and I, we got this thing. We can help you for as much as we could do. So if you just feel like I need a little bit more information, can you come and talk to anyone? Can you support us? Please contact Miss La-Rue and let her know. Tell me a little bit more about it. But I just hope in this segment right here that we had today that you understand my passion, my drive, my ministry, all of those things, and know that I'm really here for the people. Anything that I can do, anything that I have the capacity to do, I'm willing and able. And thank you so much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you are so welcome. We thank you as well. Well, folks, that's the Streets Talk Show. I want to leave you with this scripture, my favorite. Philippians 1:6 says, I am sure of this, that he who begins a good work in you will bring it to completion at the day of Jesus Christ. Thank you for watching The Streets. We'll see you next time here on the Daily Gospel Network. God bless and goodbye, y'all.
Thank you for joining us on the Streets Talk Show, hosted by Loretta La-Rue Duncan Fowler. The talk show dedicated to uplifting and encouraging you by sharing true stories from individuals making a positive impact in their communities and advancing God's mission. We invite you to tune in weekly as we explore these inspiring journeys. Until our next episode, we wish you God's blessings. Remember, you're part of the Streets Talk Show family. Take care and see you soon from Loretta and the entire team.